honestly not sure if this is our final stop, but we are at the Po Nagar towers, or temple, or what have you. These were built in the 7th century AD by the Cham people, and they are essentially the indigenous minority in Vietnam. And yes, there are indigenous people wherever you go, but not many of them left. I had understood from what I read that the Po Nagar was used as a Buddhist temple these days, which seemed odd because I understand the Champa people, such that are left, are majority Muslim and Hindu. I was like, where did the Buddhism come from? Turns out the temple as built was definitely based in Hinduism. So, my fault for believing what I read on the internet. Turns out it's not all true. The Po Nagar was built originally in honor of a Cham deity, the mother goddess, who was apparently born from sea foam, which sounds vaguely familiar. Aphrodite, Venus. Not that Western mythology and Eastern mythology knew anything of the other, but it seems that certain myths are basically universal, just as certain codes of morality are. I'm afraid that cameras weren't allowed inside, and it's kind of hard to describe what I was seeing. They did say that the ceiling goes up, and I honestly was too distracted looking at the offerings of fruit and flowers and other food to really be able to see that. Our guide told us that this is where people pray to the goddess for children. There's supposedly a statue in there of a yoni and a lingam, and you don't need to be Sigmund Freud to figure out what they're supposed to represent. I didn't see them, and in all honesty, I would find it a little ironic that they require people to cover up in order to go in the temple that is theoretically dedicated to those sorts of things. One would think that being uncovered would be an act of worship if that was the case, but I didn't see those particular sculptures, if you will. Just images of deities or demigods. I really couldn't tell you which. Meanwhile, I'm also seeing shops here, which as a tourist destination I suppose is appropriate, but on a religious site, again, kind of sticks in my craw, even though I don't believe in this religion. I get the same visceral reaction as I did back in Lombok to the touts on the main Islamic site at that place. They fear their deities? Isn't this sacrilegious? But what do I know? I'm a Westerner, I'm a Christian. I don't subscribe to these opinions, so maybe it's perfectly all right. There's a lot I don't understand. Okay, what I'd said earlier was after visiting only the Northwest Tower. I've since been in the South and Southwest Towers, and there I could obviously see a lingam, sort of a nubbin-like plinth, as it were, that had been basically rubbed round at the top. Because basically parents, or would-be parents, would rub it for good luck so as to bear a son. I would assume that the desire for a daughter to carry on the family line isn't quite as prevalent. Either that or I still haven't gotten into the right tower. It is a strange thing to someone of a belief in a single omnipotent deity to try and wrap one's head around. I actually was listening to somebody else saying something similar as I was exiting one of the other towers. these days Po Nagar is clearly more of a tourist site than one for worship. I suppose, given my perspective, that would be considered a good thing, but it's not as if people have given up Hinduism for Christianity, so it's kind of a neutral thing in that respect. After all, this is a socialist country where atheism rules the day now, so I don't think that this is a change for the better necessarily. On the other hand, it could be argued that at least this sort of thing is tolerated, and therefore theoretically all other options are, which is a good thing. Where we go from here is anybody's guess.